right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm excited to see we have almost 20 participants on the line right now, which is awesome. I wanted to just kind of touch base and just kind of overview the project with everybody before we get into the details. So this year for the Rotarians at Work Day, we've decided as the Eco Rotary Club of Kaka'ako to put this environmental focus to work, and we're actually going to be doing a cleanup and auditing. We're going to be cleaning up areas throughout the island, and we're going to be collecting data on the items that we're cleaning up from these areas throughout the island and also underwater. So we've turned it into a Ridge to Reef island-wide audit cleanup data collection day, and we want to basically adopt areas and come back to them each year and take a look and see if there's any change. Hopefully there's going to be some improvement in the rubbish that will not be there anymore, but if not, what kind of projects can we create around that to eliminate and mitigate some of the accumulation of rubbish in these areas. Another important thing of this is the data collection component. By taking the time to bag up the rubbish and then kind of dump it out and separate how many bottle caps, how many cigarette butts. We're going to be able to submit that data to some folks that kind of do this for a living. Sustainable Coastlines is an organization we're trying to work with, and Surfrider Foundation. I put a link in the chat to their data collection card for everybody to kind of review and see what we're looking at here. The reason it's so important to not only just clean up the beaches, but to also record the data is so that these folks can use this information to further their studies, to further any different bills and laws that are trying to be passed. Without data, we really have nowhere to go. But once you have the information, then you have a place to start. So that's what's really, really different from this day, the Rotarians at Work Day 2021. From other cleanups that we may have done in the past, is this time we're actually going to be collecting data at these locations. So my hope for the program is to, number one, identify locations on all of our islands that are in the most need of cleanup, and also to identify some leaders from each of those areas. I would ideally be a Rotarian that would kind of be the champion of that area, and possibly be responsible for submitting the data card that they've collected. So that way we as Rotarians can come back year after year and look at this information and kind of grow and improve the whole program. So with that in mind, this Ridge to Reef cleanup, we've already identified a few different areas from different individuals, different Rotarians and people in the community I've been talking with that could use a little tender love and care and helping hands. And also some of the reefs. I'm not a diver myself, but I've learned a tremendous amount of information from so many different people have been really open to work with me on this program and educate me on the dire need to clean up our oceans. One of the examples that's most striking to me is Spitting Caves is an area that is pretty well known for fishing, but I wasn't aware of the fishing material accumulation in that area. So fishing lines, the lead weights, as well as derelict ghost nets that are accumulating in this really high tide kind of rough area. One gentleman told me that they clean up, between 2,000 and 5,000 pounds every month from just one spot. And I was really shocked by that. He had mentioned that it's kind of frustrating and it's never ending, ongoing, and it truly could use a little more attention in that area. And I think, as we all know, some of the cleanups that have typically been going on throughout the island have been drastically either eliminated, modified since COVID-19, and the inability to gather in large groups to really attack high rubbish areas such as the James Campbell up here on the North Shore. The refuge area is considered the dirtiest beach on island. They are still not accepting volunteers. I was really hopeful, now that we're in tier 3 on Oahu, that would possibly open up the opportunity for us to get up there with a group and give it some attention. But at this time, they're still not opening tours or allowing any outside individuals into that area. So with that being said, we're going to try to do this as like a solo style cleanup. Previously, we were saying groups of 5 or less or within your household. But now that we're in tier 3, I believe the new rules are 10, groups of 10, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to open up the possibilities a little more to, really spread the work out between individuals, so it's not all heavily weighted on just a few people. And I want to underscore the amount of effort, not only to pick up the rubbish, but the amount of time. It can be very time consuming to separate and count the data for these. So my recommendation there from the feedback I've been getting from folks is maybe have one group collect and one group sort and count and submit the data. So that way nobody's getting really burnt out with it. And it can kind of speak to people's individual needs. It might be a great opportunity for our Interact and Rotaract volunteers to do the data collection. Maybe they're more willing to do that kind of information, or just the opposite, depending on everybody's physical abilities, interests, and of course the location that they're cleaning up. I hope that everybody can work out amongst yourselves, the best fit for each one of us to really get involved and start this annual cleanup. So I think hopefully I hit all the talking points of the solo style cleanup. We're trying to identify sites and identify leaders at this time, to identify the areas that they are most concerned with cleaning up, and taking note from the people that do this all the time, which is it's going to be Sustainable Coastlines and Surfrider Foundation, to kind of take their lead, follow their lead, I should say, and make this as successful as possible. Before I speak anymore, I just want to give an opportunity. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, or feedback so far?
I do. Sorry. Will we be provided with nets or certain types of bags to collect off the beaches?
I hadn't asked for any materials to be provided, but I can reach out and see if that's a possibility.
Okay, just checking, because I was wondering if there's certain supplies that we should have for collecting specific things, like the plastics or the glass.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a pair of good, sturdy working gloves to protect us as much as possible. The grabbers, I'm not sure like the technical name of it, but like litter grabbers that can just pick stuff up from the ground without having to bend over is extremely helpful. In any way that we can recycle, if we can get, bags donated from maybe a local feed store, if they have old feed bags, or maybe old burlap sacks from coffee beans, just trying to get creative with that way to collect it and not use more plastic garbage bags if possible.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I have the Rotary Club of Wahiwa Waialua ready to go to pick up at Mokulea Beach Park. But if James Campbell Beach area would be a better site and you can get approval from them, we'd be willing to take on that area.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's, I don't want to put our eggs in that basket. We've been kind of pinging them. Dick May has also been in contact with the folks over there. He does some bird watching and tours up there, and they're still not even allowing those kind of tours to go on.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Well, let us know.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So you said Mokuleia, yeah?
Well, yeah, because one of our board members has a house out there, and we're going to turn it into a barbecue event for the day as we take on this project. But we'll go wherever you need us up there in North Shore.
Wonderful. Yes, I've reached out to Surfrider Foundation and Sustainable Coastlines to see if they could provide us with a list of hotspots or even a map
Good.
to help give a little guidance for us. So as soon, if I hear back from them, I'll definitely share that information. I'm hopeful that that will, give people the option to hopefully pick something either close by or close to their heart of an area that they, really want to see preserved.
Right. Okay.
Hi, April. My name is Anka, Rotary Club Kaneohe. I have the commitment of 4 clubs, which is our windward hui, to clean up on the windward side, but it goes also to our ikai. That's part of our area. So we are also ready to go. When we've been cleaning Kailua Beach multiple times, we can do this again, but I'm today here to find out whether there are other hot spots that you'd like us to go to. But we have people ready to go.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, that side of the island, the west side in particular, I've been told repeatedly, Waimanalo. Waimanalo Beach has been a hot spot for microplastics and nurdles. So unfortunately, that kind of a cleanup is going to require more than just hands picking it up because it's, a lot smaller than the hands are able to separate typically. So we've worked with a gentleman. He did a presentation for our club earlier this month. His name is Ray, and his nonprofit education program is called seed.com. And he has these buoyancy flotation device. It's basically like a wheelbarrow that uses water, and it helps float the plastics to the surface, these microplastics, itty bitty little tiny pieces. And then once the plastics float to the surface, you're able to scoop those out and put the clean sand back onto the beach. So it's the device is about $350, I believe he said, if you order it off Amazon. If you did want to get those items locally, like Hardware Hawaii or Ace Hardware, something like that, I believe it would be just a little bit more. But that's something I would encourage many different Rotary groups to consider purchasing that beach cleanup assistant to really get the nitty gritties, more than just the, plastic bags and chip bags and straws. Because the microplastics, as we're seeing now, the big plastics just break into smaller pieces. And that's truly a big problem over on the west side, in particular, Waimanalo Beach and, the lighthouse there, Makapu Beach.
Now, how would we count all these little pieces for your data collection?
That is such a great question. In the link I provided for the Surfriders data collection card, and in that card, it's really more of bulky, and you can even count things out by the weight of them. I don't know how helpful, and I was trying to ask Ray of Seed World to see, would he want that information? And he said, at this time, no, he wants more than anything is just to educate people about that technology that he's created and how to use it, not necessarily collecting the data. At this point, he felt it was a little bit more important to educate everybody and to get it cleaned up rather than actually counting how much of the microplastics that is. But not to say that we couldn't do it, to say like how many pounds of microplastics are collected through the use of that technology.
April, may I ask you a question? So since we already know that the windward side is the area that most help needs with the microplastics, is there a chance that we can contact Ray and ask him if he wants to partner with us for that day in that area? Because I know that he's doing a beach cleanup, like I think this weekend in Kailua Beach. So if he wants to partner with the Rotary clubs that are going to be in that area doing cleanup, so he can bring the machine and they can do the collection and use the machine that he can bring. I don't know if that's an option.
Oh, in my experience, it never hurts to ask. I know I did talk about it when Ray did the presentation to our club last time. That oh, I just got kicked out of the Zoom meeting on my computer. Ray, I did make him aware that we were doing that cleanup. Whether he's able to participate or not, doesn't hurt to ask. I can reach out to him and ask him if he would be willing to kind of share the device he already has, and definitely let us use it. That'd be awesome if he can do that.
Yeah, and maybe in that way we can like have like a both of the best world. And I also know that Jenny, I remember that when we did like some beach cleanups like last year, she brought like some of those little nets when you can filter microplastics. I know that she borrowed it from someone, but if we can borrow them again and assign them to Anke, so Anke can just make sure that she gets all of them back, and then we can give them back to someone, to the person that we borrowed from. Does that make sense? I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Makes sense, because investing $350 is a lot at this time, and sharing equipment would be better.
100% agree. I think if we can have a community one that we could kind of share and pass around and use at our, our different beaches around the island. I definitely know the West Side is most notorious for the microplastics. So that would be awesome if Ray would be willing to let us borrow it. And then Peely, if you're able to contact Jenny's contact about borrowing the nets.
Okay, I'll ask Jenny to see what she gets. I also know that Jenny has a contact for the breweries that have given us those bags before, and also buckets. So I'll ask Jenny.
Awesome, thank you.
What do we do with the trash once we collect it and categorize it?
That is a really good question. And I had a really great idea, I thought, last time from a Rotarian that said, we're kind of doing the city and county's work. Maybe they could help us pick up the rubbish. So I made contact with the City and County of Honolulu's Refuge Department. And I asked them, what are our options as far as that goes? Could we, maybe get a couple trucks, one on the North Shore, one on the South, one East and West. And unfortunately, the answer that I got out of that conversation is they do not do any hauling or pickups because it is specifically for residential only waste. And unfortunately, cleanups, whether it be land or ocean, is not considered residential waste, even though it kind of comes from residents. So one of the things that I'm pursuing right now is a waiver through Chapter 9, as I understand it. We're able to apply for a cleanup waiver, and it is only for H Power, which is the end and final destination of the rubbish that we pick up. And this waiver would allow us basically a one-time waiving of the fees that would be associated with bringing disposal materials to H Power. Another option we're trying to explore is Matson. As far as the derelict nets go, Matson, as I understand it, they have a drop-off area in town. And what they do is they basically bring the derelict nets to Schnitzer Steel, which then processes those nets so that they are manageable by H Power. I guess the nets tend to really bugger up the systems over there. And another thing we're looking at, somebody had a contact at Got Junk to see if maybe they'd be willing to donate some time or some vehicles or give us a discount to get this cleaned up. But another thought I have is if we kind of keep this as more of a solo and, 5 to 10 people per cleanup, I'm not anticipating a tremendous amount of waste at all these little cleanups island-wide. Best practice is to bring it to H Power. Now, off the record, essentially, if we were to bring our residential cars to transfer stations, it would likely not raise a red flag. But if we go in there with a convoy of multiple vehicles with a bunch of rubbish, it might be abusing that system, so to speak. But I'm hopeful that we're able to, if we're at a park cleaning up, that we can use the containers that might already be available. Also, I just want to mention for everybody on Oahu, if you come across any tires or green waste during the cleanups, let me know. We can explore that more with the city and county. That was one area that they were a little bit more flexible on as far as these beach cleanups go. If anybody comes across any abandoned like tires and tremendous amount of green waste during the pickups. But as of right now, yeah, the city and county doesn't offer any hauling or pickup for these kind of cleanups. It is for residential waste only.
So do you think we're allowed to take them to the drop-off areas? Like, there's one, I call it Dump Road off of Poly Highway. Can we take stuff there?
Yeah, I think, as long as we're, doing it in these small increments and it as residents of our communities, that's what these transfer stations are meant for. So I believe that would be okay, and it wouldn't be abuse or misuse of those services. I think there's one in Ke'ehi has a transfer station. There's one in Wahiwa. There's one in Haleiwa. But yeah, as long as we're not showing up in droves and really like overwhelming their systems on this day, I think that would be the biggest thing to take into consideration.
April, I think we should research this and get back to everybody. I think the city would be happy, or the counties on the other islands would be happy that we're picking up rubbish, and they would want to partner with us, especially if we're going to partner with other organizations. So let's research that and see what we can do to get it picked up from us, rather than have us put the bags in our cars and take it to the transfer station. So everybody, let's pause on that thought, and we'll try and get some solution to that. But I want to ask Reese. Reese, you guys pick up rubbish from that place by Sandy Beach. What do you guys do with the rubbish? Reese?
There's very little rubbish out there. It's pretty well picked over. People do it every Tuesday. Tuesday between 4 and 6 p.m. And so doing it like that, you just don't get very much at one time.
Okay.
And what they do get, I don't know. It's called 808 Cleanups is the organization, and I can find out what they do with their trash, and I'll report that back.
April, are you expecting people who do non-beach cleanups like hikes and roads to also be auditing and counting plastics and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we want to do more than just clean up. We want to collect the data to further the progress of the area. What happens a lot is, as I understand it from these folks like Surfrider and Sustainable Coastlines, is so many folks come and pick up, but what's never really recorded what was there. So they don't really know if it's getting better. They don't know how often the cleanups are happening at each location. So it's kind of hard to tell what's naturally accumulating and what's being picked up and removed when they do these point in times. It's been likened to, if anybody's familiar with the homeless population, every January they do a pit count, a point in time count of how many homeless are accounted for. And this is essentially a similar concept, is that if we're not counting what we're picking up at a certain point in time, then if nobody's keeping track, we don't know if it's getting better or worse. Of course, the cleanup is great. If anybody can go anywhere and just pick up rubbish that's flying around in styrofoam containers, that is a huge start. If you're able to do the data collection and audit that area and really adapt it and come back year after year, even better.
Who are we gonna
Do you
give
have
the
an
data
area you
to?
were looking at?
April?
April, I got a question. So it does apply the data collection for probably clubs that just do a hike and they just pick up some rubbish during the hike, or the data collection only applies for like a reef or beach or parks, like, or the data collection applies for everything?
Applies for everything.
April, I have a question. This is the first time I've been involved in this event. And my question is I guess the question simply is why data collection? And I think you've just answered that. But to whom are you reporting this to? And how are you going to publicize the results of that so that we're not counting things just to count things? It is labor intensive to count tiny pieces of trash after you pick it up. And I would think, as you were just saying, I mean, someone just talked about Sandy Beach and how clean it is just by visually seeing that it is clean because of the consistency in cleaning. If a group looks at a park and adopt that park or the beach and that area of the beach and keep it clean, would that data be as good as what you're proposing?
Oh, thank you, Gloria. So I think hopefully we talked about why the data is so important, who we're reporting to. The data collection card from Surfrider seems to be a really great one. I'm not 100% committed to it. There are other options available like sustainable coastlines. This is what they do year round. This is, really their bread and butter. Sustainable coastlines has a really great reach. And we could, essentially you could partner with anyone to really further the data that they're collecting. As far as publicizing what we're collecting, I hadn't really planned on publicizing what we're collecting. It's because this is just the first time we're doing it. Not to say that we shouldn't. It'd be really great to say, look at all the work that these Rotarians have done together. They've collected, 192 cigarette butts and 4,500, containers of food containers to go. It is really important to collect the data. I really want to stress that. I've asked both those organizations to do a presentation for this committee at one of the every other Thursdays that we're meeting to elaborate on it more. I'm definitely far from an expert in this area, and it's just something that I'm wanting to get involved with, and I know needs more work. But hopefully they could kind of clarify a little bit more how they use that data, what they're using that data to do, what are their goals to achieve other than a plastic-free world. Ideally we're going to get away from single-use plastics. But as far as publicizing it, I think it could be a good opportunity, I suppose.
I guess my question is this regarding collecting items and the type of data we're collecting. And I think that's where I'm coming from here, is if we go out as a group, and obviously I'm talking about involving some of the interactors with us. If we go out as a group, my thought is if we come back and we measure what we've done in terms of how many bags of trash we've brought in, that's, unless there's a real good reason, that to me is good data. You've got 10 kids out there and we come back with 30 bags. That's 3 bags per child or per student. And that's where I'm coming from as far as data collection, because you don't want to waste the time and you don't want to kill the spirit.
Sure, I think
involved.
absolutely. To kind of speak to
can
why
I do an intervention there, if you don't mind, April?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I was going to
okay,
share
so
a video
Gloria-
to kind of speak to that. Go ahead.
Okay, but I'm just gonna make a small intervention. So Gloria, the information that we submit or that we collect on this beach cleanup or the cleanup that we're gonna do is gonna be submitted to either Surfrider or coastlines, and they're gonna track that data on top of the data that they already have. So the importance of going like a little bit beyond of just counting the bags that we collect and going and identify the garbage, the type of garbage or rubbish that we are picking up, is because that information is going to help those groups to do advocacy in approving bills. So that's what is important, to get the accurate information of the rubbish that we are getting, not only the bags. So I can assure you that that information is not going to be wasted. And I am sure that these organizations, they have like a compile of information on how many tons of garbage and classify the garbage they have collected during the years. I know that because I saw it this week. So I don't think that if we do it and if we collect the data, it's gonna be like a waste of time or it's gonna kill the spirit. Instead, it's gonna, I believe, it's gonna make the kids more aware of the importance of the paths of the decisions that we make when we buy plastic water instead of bringing our own water. When you count like how many bottles are just around it, and you just figure it out that there's only 1 day of waste, and you just do the math in how many it can be if you multiply that for a year, it should teach them like the impact that can make just changing our habits in our daily basis. So to wrap it up, so all the information that we collect from this cleanup is just going to bring value to the capacity of these organizations that actually do advocacy to get better bills passed and to improve the conditions of the island towards the single plastic using and other environmental decisions are among the state, if that makes sense. April.
I want to say something.
That was awesome, Pili. Yeah, Jacob, please.
I think it's especially important to take this or collect this data now, this year, as a number of plastic bans have just been put into place. So we can set a baseline for, this is what we're seeing this year. And if we do this continuously over the next few years, we'll be able to see what these policies have done in terms of what reduction in what specific plastic items we've seen and whether it has an effect. So I think it's more important than ever to collect this data now and really put the effort in to do that.
Absolutely. Speaking of recent bills that are going on and why this data collection is so important, some of you might be familiar, I believe it's Bill 40. This is an intention and hope to stop the single-use food truck containers. It was attempted up here on the North Shore with some food trucks to get them to use reusable containers, where essentially it would be free. You would get this container that is reusable and you would return it back to them when you're done, rather than having one that would be thrown away. Unfortunately, it wasn't saw all the way through, so they've kind of switched gears and now they're doing it with local restaurants. So it's an opportunity to see if this program is successful. Is there a decrease in the single-use food containers that are being found at beach cleanups? Is this new program showing that this not only is going to save these businesses, these restaurants, money that they're paying for this disposable throwaway containers? Is it going to save the city and county from how much rubbish is collected in all these, trash cans throughout the city? If they use a reusable food container and we give it back to them, how that affect kind of that ripple effect of it. So if we're not counting how many food containers we're picking up at the beaches, and we're just counting it by a bag, we don't really see an improvement. We don't see a decline. It's just seen as a bag of garbage, but not really knowing what's inside doesn't help the argument for or against it. If that helps make any sense, Gloria, I hope that kind of helps to
Thank you.
answer.
I appreciate you explaining it. I think one of the important aspect of your explanation is, from what I just gathered, is this partnership with some of the advocacy group. And that's the first time I've really, as I said, this is my first venture into this. And that was the first time I've heard about formal partnership of Rotary at Work with the surf riders, or I didn't even know they were partners in this. So yes, it does make sense for an advocacy group. I think more than anything, developing an awareness among the students as well as the adults in any of these areas is important about keeping plastics and those types of items off our
Awesome, Gloria.
beaches.
Thank you so much for deciding to join this as a first time. You know, we're stepping into new territory. I don't think we've ever organized something like this, either from an island or statewide. So it's new. We're learning as we go, and I hope every year is just going to get better and better. And you hit the nail on the head about the awareness. If once people realize how many straws are being connected and collected at these, you know, maybe they'll have reusable straws and keep their own cutlery with them.
I always feel that it's a small step forward, and we might not be doing all the aspects of it, but if we participate in a small way to do the cleaning, then that definitely is developing that awareness as well.
Gloria, we can also help out setting a speaker with your Interact group. Remember how we did with Camilo for the tree planting? We can probably have like one of those organizations speaking to your Interact group, so they kind of have an understanding about the data and why it's important at this point, if that's something that interests to you.
April?
We'll plan with the students to see how we're going to move forward.
This is Lonnie from the same club that Gloria's from. We have done Adopt a Highway every other month for a lot of years. The thought of emptying any of those bags to count what's in there, when you have to pour out a beer bottle and a dead mouse comes out at the same time, that is not something you want to revisit when you get to the other end. Not to mention how time consuming cigarette butts and all those things are. I love the value and the numbers. When you see cigarette butts and you see 3,796, I see the value in that. But I also think that maybe that should be saved for certain sections, certain beaches that you're gonna for sure revisit every year to make those numbers count, to watch them change, to do that. Because if you have a small club like ours, and this is going to be a one-time thing, and you might totally do a different area next year, or you might do a hike, or you might do a highway, you might do a city street, then those efforts to me should be all about picking up as much trash as you can in the 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours that you make that event. Because I know what we collect in 2 hours every other month for Adopt a Highway, it's exhausting, it's heavy, it's a ton of stuff. And if you're really going to get all those things, you don't want to take the time to count the piece of styrofoam that you just pick up. You want to get it in the bag, you want to get it up the ditch that you just went down there for. It is hard work. So auditing, I totally get the value of that and how that makes an impact on education to our entire islands. But I also think that there should be options for people who don't want to audit or want to focus on the trash pickup. And maybe we should focus our areas of the audits that we are for sure going to revisit regularly. that's just my opinion.
Absolutely. And that I'm glad you're underscoring, like, it is a tremendous amount of work. It's one thing to pick it up and throw it, quote unquote, away and never see it again. And revisiting, the mouse in the beer bottle is quite a visual. And this is to speak to anybody who hasn't really done cleanups of that nature before. You might encounter things like that. You might encounter syringes on the beach, and not knowing how to deal with those kinds of things is something I really want to get everybody prepared as best as we can for what is unfortunately very common in cleanup efforts these days. Is it's ugly. It's not pretty. And I would like to see Rotarians adopt an area to identify leaders and like a champion of an area that they are willing to come back to that same area year after year and check and see if there's an improvement, if there's a decline. The real easy example is to think about, how many cigarette butts you collected on a biking trail or something. Maybe if they put cigarette butt receptacles along the trail, that would stop them from blowing around and, the getting into the water. If there was a place, if there were more trash cans along the way, if there were recycling options, would that help resolve some of the issues? But the data collection is a lot of work, no doubt about it. Cleanup is hard work, no doubt about that. But yeah, you're absolutely correct in the amount of time that would be spent dumping that stuff out and recounting it. That's why I think, if possible, I would recommend 2 separate groups. One who might be interested in just a cleanup and be done with it, and the folks that are more interested in the nitty gritty, that data collection, the sorting and separating, so nobody gets really burned out in that day.
I have a question.
Sure.
Excuse me. April, what is the timeline on this? Are you looking at like 8 in the morning till noon, or noon till 4, or all day?
This is at everybody's leisure because it's not an orchestrated event. We're not like everybody's converge at Magic Island from 8 to noon. It's a little bit more flexible, whatever everybody is feeling good to take on, whatever's within your comfort zone. If I prefer to get out early in the morning before it gets hot to do this kinds of stuff, and then maybe sort the data in the shade, sitting down, sitting in front of that pile. And we have containers in front of us. This container's for all the bottle caps. This container's for all the plastic straws. This container's for all the disposable food packaging. This one's just for the plastic foil, like a potato chip bag, something like that. So definitely attacking it in teams. And, some people are morning people. Some of us are night owls. Whatever works best for, each person.
Okay, so Kate, if you guys are going to do the afternoon, like 1 to 5, and then have a cookout afterwards in Mokalia, can you let us know so we can come down too?
Well, you have to bring a dish. It's a potluck. Actually, we were talking about it this morning, and we were deciding, just like April said, that morning collection is probably cooler in the day, and then do the sorting and all that in the afternoon. But when I find out the time for the barbecue, I'll let you know.
Let me know too.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Beauty. Sounds good.
So Anka, you guys start from your side and meet us in Mokalia, and we'll all meet up over there.
Okay.
Yes, that's a plan. But with our micro plastic collection, we won't go far. So.
Yeah, but I do know an area that I've been to quite a bit, and it's full of rubbish all the time. And that's right across the street from the Gunstock Ranch and up around Kuhuku. All the rubbish blows up there.
Yeah, there's a current. And so I think if we go in small groups, you make your own time, but it is possible that if we find a really big place that we need more hands, that we would need
Yeah.
to coordinate it. So I think identifying the problem spots is going to be something we'll do with Sustainable Coastlines. And Sustainable Coastlines does do a really good presentation. So Gloria, if you want one for your interactors, we can give you the contact information. And Sustainable Coastlines has already given us their interest. They want to partner in this.
Oh, good. So that's up around Malaikahana, all up and around in that area there. It's a rubbish patch.
For the record, if you don't bring the data collection, Kate won't let you into the barbecue.
Okay, that sounds good. Good deal.
Okay, so April, what's the next step?
So I think the next step is really identifying the areas. If any Rotarian wants to kind of adopt an area and identify the leaders. So that person would be kind of like we did with the tree planting project, that they would really be the champion of their area and of their team, their group, and their data collection. I have loosely here so far on my list is Kate in Mokuleia is really interested in cleaning up that area. I have Reese, I forget what area you had mentioned. And I have Lonnie on the west side.
Yeah, we're interested in doing the 12 blocks centered on Rotary Centennial Park.
Awesome.
That's from Cubio to the canal and the blocks around there. It's a trash heap, and we know it. And we've been trying to get the business association to do it, and they say there's not enough hotels there, so they won't. Not enough visitors there, so they won't pick it up.
Wow.
So
That doesn't,
if we can have-
the visitors don't take away from the rubbish, unfortunately. Oh, well, we'll do our best.
So April, if we can have a form and maybe have a map so we can map out where everybody's going, so we kind of are spread out and not going to find out we've got everybody going to one place, that would be good.
That's exactly what I'm hoping to prevent. If people can step up, and if you can identify an area that you'd like to adopt, let me know. I am waiting still yet from Sustainable or Surfrider to give us a list or a map of other options if you didn't already have one in mind. But if you do have one in mind, by all means, let me know, claim it, and then I'll keep a record of the document so we can see, what Rotary Club is adopting what area and how many members they expect to have. And, some areas need a lot more attention than others. So hopefully we can spread our helping hands out along these needed areas together and not all cluster, which it sounds like, with Rotary clubs throughout the island and the state for that matter, there's plenty of work to be done, plenty of work for all of us.
Yeah.
And then I had Anka for the Hawaii Kai windward side. Any other areas or any clubs that want to kind of claim a location? If you don't have one ready at this time, by all means, just let me know. Shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Yeah, and if you have any questions, by all means, send me your questions, and I'll try my best to get answers.
April, I know we were talking about doing the water part, and me and David Livingston are working together on the underwater cleanup section. And I think he is trying to get a boat for us to be able to go out in the shallow coastline area of Waikiki and try to pick up there. I'm not real sure what he's arranged yet, but I'll try to find out for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to arrange some boats myself. I haven't gotten any confirmation, but I put a lot of feelers out there. So
Okay.
hopefully, and I have a feeling it seems to me like the diving community is pretty well connected. A lot of folks seem to know each other. So I'm hopeful
Yes.
to kind of get everybody to connect and, combine forces for the reef cleanup. Absolutely.
Okay, sounds good.
Mark Harbison, do you have a coordinator from Maui?
Mark, you're muted.
I am not the coordinator for Maui. I will forward all the information to Mariko and Kwanzaa and let them. What I can do is work on the south side with our club president for this side of the island, but for the west side and central, I'm going to have to get the AGs involved.
Okay.
Is there a day we're supposed to do this, or is it over a month?
We're targeting for the Rotarians at Work Day, which is the last Saturday during the month of April. And this year that falls on April 24th. So with the hope that every Rotarians at Work Day, this will be an initiative that continues on year after year. So the technical date, the 24th, might not always be the case, but I believe it's the last Saturday during the month of April is recognized as Rotarians at Work Day. Good. And I see some people put some notes in the chat. I'm trying to copy and paste those to my list right now. Thank you so much. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I wanted to say regarding the data collection and posting that, it did occur to me that we could create a map, which would help us. Maybe it may even help people recognize, their locations and what locations need to be more helped out. But this map could show where people are collecting, and then it could be somewhat interactive, and you could click on an area and it could give you that data as to what is being there. So I'm just saying I'm interested in helping you produce a map, maybe a more interactive map.
That sounds awesome. That sounds really an interactive map. I would love that. Well, I guess the next real steps after this is I think everybody's got a pretty good idea of what we're hoping to achieve for this day. And I thank everybody for even your interest in entertaining this kind of crazy ridge to reef idea that just kind of sparked, with environmental focus for Rotary International now being, another area of focus. I would love to pursue, what we can for our environment, for our communities. And it's really refreshing and promising to see so much interest, and it's only going to get better from here. So I really, really just thank everybody for listening to this crazy idea and trying to make the world a little bit better place.
Thanks to you, April, for initiating this. This is great. And to your club.
Absolutely. I think we're working on creating a flyer to create awareness around the event. And we really want to bring, a little attention to what us Rotarians are doing in our communities. So we'll get a flyer going. We'll get that out to everybody once we have that confirmed. And, some of the information is a little bit flexible. Before yesterday, it was groups of 5 or more. So now it's 10, which is great. So it's really exciting to see that. I feel like we're on this upward trajectory here to getting back to what us Rotarians do best, which is like come together and take action.
Gonna be good. Thank you.
Thank you, April.